Reddit stories number 1.
We used to go down to an abandoned train station to smoke in my hometown. It was so isolated and huge, which is why it made for the perfect place to go and smoke with friends, skateboard, and just generally hang out. So my friend and I were sitting on the edge of the platform smoking a joint and chatting away at about 1 am. It was so silent and peaceful. No wind blowing, no noise at all. It was a serene moment. While we were blazing, we see a white owl come and land on the platform. My friend and I freaked the fuck out. An owl, a white owl. Here, this is on the east coast of South Africa. We don't see many owls, if any. Fook, we were so taken back by this owl, it blew our minds that this majestic creature had chosen to grace us with it as presence. It truly must have been our spirit animal reaching out to us in a moment of enlightenment. So my friend pulls out his disposable camera and snaps a shot. We high-five, we hug, we smoke another joint in celebration. Minds are blown all over the fucking train station. Anyway, my friend got his pictures developed and it was a seagull. But it was a fucking sweet seagull, though.
Reddit stories number 2.
I got baked one night out on the beach, as I did many nights. My good friend and I walked down the beach sharing a decent-sized blunt. We finished the whole thing and decided to go sit down up on the dunes, which are about 50 yards in from the water. We sit down about 5 feet from each other and spark up a cig. Two guys are walking down closer to the water than us and stop when they get aligned with us. We were so stoned we didn't care. The ocean breeze and the stars and ocean were really fucking with them feels. All of a sudden the two guys start walking towards us, really slowly and making hand gestures. They were making sounds but we couldn't make out the words. The whole time me and my boy are just looking at them. Finally I say, yo man, I know I am pretty baked, but do you see two dudes walking up to us or am I just tripping? He replies, oh shit, you see them too. I thought I was seeing shit, that's why I didn't say anything. By this time they are about 15 feet from us. I can now clearly see and hear what they are doing. These two dudes thought my friend and I were two stray dogs sitting on the beach. They were patting their thighs and saying, come here boy, come on boy, whistle whistle whistle, come here. I took me about 20 seconds to muster up a what the fuck are you doing, and they ran off. I think we left for about 15 minutes after we grasped the whole situation.
Reddit stories number 3.
The first time I ever made pot brownies was the first night I moved into my new apartment. Unauthorized vehicles that were not parked in the guest parking section were towed, but I was using my parents' van to move instead of my small car. My landlord didn't want me taking up one of only for guest spots all day, so she called the tow company to arrange for me to have one free day to move. This was around 11 am. I think cool, I have one 24-hour period to use this parking spot later that night, my friends, and I decide to celebrate finishing moving by making pot brownies. I got very high. I fall asleep a couple hours later. At 8 am the next day I wake up to a phone call from my frantic landlord. She explains that the tow trunk company has already sent 3 workers to the complex and tried to tow the van. She, being the best landlord this side of the Mississippi, stopped them all 3 times but demanded that I move the vehicle to guest parking immediately. Fair enough, so I got my very sleepy self out of bed and outside. Usually, I know when I am high. Usually, I am only high for about 3 hours before the buzz wears off. These brownies, and I kid you not, made me high for 24 hours. While I walked to the parking lot, I remember noting to myself how incredibly sleepy I was. However, being a college student, 8 am on a Sunday felt like the crack of dawn to me, so I just shook it off. I got down to the parking lot and into the van. The guest parking was only 2 spots down from where I was parked and in front of a first-floor apartment. There was a cute garden in front of the apartment between the parking spot and the sidewalk. I knew I was really tired, but I figured I could handle this simple task. I assure you, had I known I was high, I would have never gotten into the driver's seat.
Everything as a blur after I pulled out of the parking spot. Suddenly, I wake up to a jolt and I find myself headed straight toward a first-floor apartment. In my blurred haze, I had let the van drive up the curb and through the small garden. My feet weren't on the pedals. I watched a small garden tree hit my parents' front bumper and fall forward. I scrambled my feet onto the pedals and panicked. I couldn't remember which was the gas and which was the brakes. I felt the front tires ease onto the sidewalk. I was quickly headed toward that first-floor apartment. I knew I had to make a choice. I had a 50-50 chance. You know how people say they watch their entire past flash before their eyes the second before they think they are going to die. Instead, I saw my future. In that split second I visualized myself hitting the gas and speeding right into the complex. I saw my parents' mangled car. I saw myself dropping out of college to pay for the hospital bills and apartment damages. I saw the victims whose home I have now destroyed. I saw myself waiting tables for the next 4 years while I wallowed in self-disappointment. I knew I had a 50-50 chance, so I slammed my foot on a pedal. The car stopped. I spent a solid 30 seconds frozen in shock before finally shifting the van into reverse. I slowly wheeled the van back over the curb and into the parking spot. When I got out of the van, I noticed that the small tree had been uprooted and was now stuck under my front tire. I ran into my landlord's office and started gurgling out an apology at 1,000,000 miles per hour. She stopped me halfway through and came outside to see the damage to her garden. Then she laughed. She couldn't believe I ran over her tree. Reality came back to me, my nerves calmed, and I started laughing with her. She laughed over absurdity. I laughed over relief. I offered to pay her back for the tree, but she said it was no big deal and helped me wiggle it out from under the tire. I went to toss it in a nearby dumpster while she walked back to her office. During the walk of shame back to my apartment, I passed my landlord's office and she called me in. On the TV, she had the security camera footage. She rewound and we watched me pull out, drive the 3 yards to guest parking, and proceed to roll up the curb and over her tree before halting just 2 feet away from the apartment. We both laughed so hard we cried while we watched me freeze up in shock on the security footage. It was in the moment that I realized I was still high. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I vowed to never step foot into a car without accessing my sobriety first. No visible damage to the van was done and my folks never found out. The landlord never made me pay for damage and we joked about it till the day my lease was up. I graduated college that year with honors and am now working a job I love. Sometimes when I am hard on myself, I remember that 50-50 chance and how my life could have turned out. I remember the life I visualized in that split second. My actual life always looks better after that. And I didn't know I was high and tried to drive, ran over a tree and nearly crashed into an apartment.